Time is now 6:15 on June 28th, 2022. Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda as submitted. This is for possible action. So I'll take a motion.
I'll move that we accept the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Second by Don. Any public comment?
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you so much. I'm here too early, so I'm leaving, but you're going to be stuck with me later. I hope you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denny. Any online comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
This time I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. At this time, we'll adjourn to a closed session per NRS 288.220(4) to discuss labor relations with the district management representatives, and this is for discussion only. It's 7 o'clock now. We'll go ahead and reconvene to the public session. And before we start with the agenda, I'd ask for a moment of silence for Greg Hatch, who passed away recently. He was a special ed bus driver, and just a few weeks ago he passed away. So if we could have a moment of silence, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. We'll go ahead and start with the flag salute, and it's being led by Ms. Lupe Ramirez. Mrs. Move on to agenda item number 5, Superintendent Report. Mr. Stokes, your last one.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, friends, welcome. I just wanted to let members of our community know that the schools recognize that summer times are times when families move. And I know we've had a couple of calls this week asking where some of our staff members are. Just a note to keep trying. Many of our staff members do go on vacation during the month of July, but we also know that families move to town, and we're anxious that they have an opportunity to ask questions about our school system and to enroll their students. So I invite anybody who might be new to town to reach out either electronically by going to our webpage. We have www.carsoncityschools.com. And also the superintendent's office number, sorry, Renee, is 775-283-2100. And we can certainly direct individuals who reach out. I'd also like to let people who might be new to the city know that we do have a number of vacancies in our organization, and we invite them to contact our Human Resources Department for potential jobs. So with that, happy summer. Hope everyone is safe, and certainly wish our staff members a safe and a restful summertime. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And you're not off the hook. I'd ask you to join me down at the podium, if you would. I've prepared just a few quick remarks, but as I stand here, I hope I can do this. I really have mixed emotions. You know, I'm sad that this is your last board meeting with us, but on the other hand, I'm very happy for you that you're going off into your retirement years, and I wish you, your wife, and your family the very best of luck. Yeah. And I've only worked with you for about 3.5 years, but I've found during that time that you are an honorable and person with high integrity, and I know that you've always cared deeply about the district, the employees, and most of all, the students. That has not gone unnoticed of your commitment to the district. So thank you. You've been with the district for 21 years. First as a human resource director and as a superintendent for the last 14 years. There are many accomplishments under your leadership. Too many for me to mention, however, I will read a few and recognize a few of them if you don't mind. And I'm going to refer to my notes so I don't forget. You are the first to admit that these accomplishments were not only your doings, but it was working with the staff, the board, and other community members. So you're a humble person, I appreciate that. And I know that you would not want to take the credit for all this 100%. But you worked to pass the 2010 school rollover bond, which allowed a lot of remodel to different district offices or schools, a lot of additional space added to the schools. You were able to lead the district in getting rid of the portables and turn them into brick and mortar facilities, which I know that all the teachers and all the staff really, really appreciated. It was a long time coming, but it happened. But anyway, you increased the district graduation rates. In 2015, the graduation rate was 74.30%. This last year, 2021, graduation rate was 85.71%. So good job, thank you. And one of the most important things that you and AJ did was keep the district on a good fiscal footing during the recession and during the pandemic. That was a big undertaking. You worked on with staff and received a $10 million Race to the Top federal grant, which spanned 5 years, which allowed for a lot of innovative things to take place at the district. You helped implement the Jumpstart College program in conjunction with WNC. Mrs. Schema, help. You worked with the Sheriff's Office to create and sustain the School Resource Officers Program. Under your leadership, the district became the first district in the state of Nevada to have one-to-one devices for all the students. It was a big undertaking. You facilitated the development of the district's strategic plan in 2012. You established the community PLC meetings and ongoing meetings that you had over the years, and the refresh that I think took place in 2017. You were the president of the Nevada Associated School Superintendents in 2012. 2013, you were named the Superintendent of the Year for NASB. In 2014, the Superintendent of the Year again. That's good. And I know that you quit wanting to be nominated to be Superintendent of the Year after winning it so many times. So that's where it kind of ended because you kept saying, no. You were appointed by the governor to the Commission on Professional Standards in 2019. You got the Trailblazer Award 2022 from the Green Schools National Network for the district. You've been a member of the Rotary Club. You maintain a lot of community involvement, which is needed by the superintendent. And like I said earlier, probably the biggest thing you did was help lead the district through these last 2 years through the COVID pandemic, which, as we all know, was an unprecedented time in American education. And you did it with grace and great leadership, and we had the kids back in school as soon as we could, and we just really appreciate what you've done there. Like I said, we're going to miss you. But we have a couple other things here for you. We have a plaque from the board. Which reads, the Carson City School District gratefully acknowledges Richard Stokes, July 2001 through June 2022, in appreciation for your dedication to education and the children of the Carson City School District. That's your plaque. Thanks very much. You're welcome. However, there's more. Senator Rosen reached out, and she wants to give you a certificate of special congressional recognition, and it reads, presented to Richard Stokes in recognition of your service, your career and service to the students and education community of Northern Nevada. Congratulations on your retirement for, I can't even read that, for serving on as superintendent for the Carson City School District. The original will come in the mail soon. It's not quite here yet. She wanted to really be here, but circumstances prevented her from being here. And there's more. From the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Mark Hamadeh, you have a congressional recognition. It reads, awarded to Superintendent Richard Stokes in recognition of your retirement after 21 years of service to the Carson City School District. Thank you for your trusted leadership to our community. And it's signed by Mr. Hamadeh, dated May 26, 2022. There's more. We also have a proclamation here from our local representative and Mr. Don Tatro, who's one of our senators, local senator. And there's a bunch of whereases, if you don't mind. I'll put my glasses on and I'll read the whereases. This is a state of Nevada proclamation. Whereas the role of exemplary school administrators extends beyond perfecting the learning process, gifted education leaders provide their staff with the necessary tools that are essential in inspiring a love of learning in children and uplifting the communities they serve. And whereas one such transformational education leader is Richard Stokes, who began his career in education at a small rural high school in Lyman, Wyoming, where he spent 8 years focused on a well-rounded and diverse professional path by teaching science, coaching basketball and track and field, and handling the duties of senior advisor. And whereas, upon receiving an administrative credential from the University of Wyoming, Mr. Stokes moved with his family to Hawthorne, Nevada, to serve as principal for Mineral County High School, and 3 years later was named superintendent of the Mineral County School District. And whereas, in July of 2001, Mr. Stokes joined the Carson City School District as an associate superintendent of human resources, and in 2008 was appointed superintendent. And whereas, during his time as superintendent of the Carson City School District, Mr. Stokes changed the district philosophy to a more learner-centered model, cultivated an environment for students and employees to thrive, and fostered an atmosphere where the community celebrated the accomplishments of students during public meetings. And whereas, under his leadership, the Carson City School District's consistent rating as one of the best school districts in Nevada coincided with Carson City's high school routinely being ranked as one of the best schools in the state, with its graduation rate lauded by U.S. News and World Reports. And whereas, Mr. Stokes devoted most of his life to ensuring that every student left school equipped with necessary skills to contribute positively to Nevada. And his genuine personality brought much joy to and respect from students, faculty, and support staff. Now, wherefore, be it proclaimed that Nevadans are encouraged to celebrate the positive and transformational changes Superintendent Richard Stokes ushered and recognize his accomplishments and unwavering commitment to preparing the youth of our great state to flourish, and be it further proclaimed that Richard Stokes long be remembered for his exemplary 35 years of service to education, and is wished a most rewarding and fulfilling retirement in the company of his wife for 34 years, Kelly, with 4 children and their 4 grandchildren. Dated the 30th day of June, 2022. And signed by Mr. P.K. O'Neill and Mr. Don Tatro. But there's more. That was long, I apologize, but I thought it was good to read it. Thank you. As the board considered what to get you as a going-away gift, we kind of struggled with it. And finally, Stacy came up with a good idea, so I'm going to let her explain to you what we're going to do.
So, Mr. Stokes, you were here right? Let's make a deal. You and I have been through a lot in the last 14 years. And when I was president in 2018 was when you first started talking about retirement. And thank you, Kelly, for not letting him do it. I don't know how we would have made it through COVID without you and your staff that you've put together. As you notice around town, there are these black benches that are dedicated to different people and different associations and different organizations. They didn't have one available. So, being the innovative school board that we are, we found a bench just like it. And it'll have a plaque with the same saying as you have on your plaque. And in case you haven't noticed at the district office, one of the things that hasn't been updated in our last plan was the benches. So this will go right out front of the district office that for your dedication and commitment to the children and staff and our school boards through the years for everything you've done, so that you will know every time somebody goes and walks by, they can have their lunch and that's where you can go. So we do appreciate everything.
What I'd like to do now is open up the board for comments. Mike, you want to start? You have anything?
Well, Mr. Stokes, I think I'm probably the only one up here could say that you've been my boss and you've been a colleague. And so I've always appreciated your counsel, your integrity, and just the demeanor and the way you interact with people. The last couple of years have been tough, and you've handled that like the true professional you are. So I just, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for our district. Thank you, Mr. Long. Good luck in the future.
Don?
Steady hands, calm, kids first, always putting others before himself. As good of a superintendent Richard is, he's a better human being. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stokes.
Lupe?
So I remember that I went to the school district once to volunteer, and I attended the meeting, and I'm like, I don't know what I have to contribute to this meeting, but Mr. Stokes was very welcoming, and he made me feel that I mattered and that he wanted to see me engage in the district. And ever since then, I have felt so appreciative of all the things that you've done for all students and for all the communities. And thank you for opening that door to all of us who are so interested in doing something better for our district and for our community. So thank you, and we will miss you.
Laurel?
When I think of a good man in a storm, I think of you. Your calmness, your steadiness, your honesty. It is, and just dedication to all students. A couple of things I thought of as Mr. Varner was reading is the all-day kindergarten was instituted and implemented under your leadership with, I know Sukima made that happen. And also just great advances to the gifted and talented program and education in this district. And so much for our English learners. So many things. But most of all, I think the community support that I started on this board after being involved with the first strategic plan, and opening that and setting the goals for this district has set the course. So thank you for being the captain of the ship. It's been an honor.
Also, Mr. Cassiopo could not be here tonight, but he did reach out to me and wanted me to let you know that he appreciates everything you've done, he appreciates your leadership, and he wishes you the best of luck in the future in your retirement. And I think we'd all like to say, do not be a stranger. You know, come and visit, get your input. You know. Anyway, thank you very much, and best of luck in your retirement.
This has really been very nice. Thank you for your kind comments, and certainly thanks, friends, for coming out. It's very touching to me and meaningful. You might find me on that bench. How soon does it go up?
As soon as Mr. Cornick will let me have the okay.
Try not to put, do not loiter, because I plan to do some of that. But it truly has been my honor to have worked in this school district. I've said it many times, this is the best place I have ever lived and worked. And it's because of the people. I've been very moved by the genuine talent and caring of the people that are on our staff. And truly, none of what was read here would have been possible without your support, without the hard work and the skill, the knowledge, the abilities of the people that are in our district as staff members. I mean, truly, that's where the rubber hits the road. I got to say thanks to Renee. She has pulled my bacon out of the fire many times, and certainly have relied heavily on her. And my friends at Allison McKenzie, true gentlemen and ladies all the way around, with excellent guidance and advice when things got a little dicey. Thanks to my wife, Kelly, she's here tonight. I think this is the first meeting in 35 years she has ever attended. She always claimed, she used that Super Bowl analogy, that she got a better seat at home watching the meetings. But thank you, dear, and thanks for your role in raising our kids. Great kids, and who, by the way, are thriving because of their education in this school district. I have a PhD candidate. I have a daughter who's a master's degree obtainer. I have a daughter who's making more money than I am, and I have a son that's still in college, and just high hopes, and they're truly bright points in my life. I'm grateful for my professional colleagues. I mean, truly, I am blessed and honored to have had the examples, to have had the friendships, to have had the confidences, to have had the support, even when that support was, you better think about that again. Those were really well-placed words and statements that have guided me in my job, and I appreciate all that they've done. I want to say thanks too for my parents. I was raised in a good way by good people, and really appreciate them. So before I get emotional, I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. President, but thank you. This has been really a memorable evening for me, and I appreciate the sentiments and the kindnesses. It's truly appreciated. Thank you.
I had 3 pages of accomplishments that I could have read, but I didn't do it to save you guys time. However, I know there's people in the audience who would like to say a few words, and in a few minutes, we'll open up public comment, and then feel free to come up and make your comments then if you don't mind. It'll just be a minute or so. But thank you for all showing up, and thank you again. Moving on. The next would be Nevada Association of School Boards update, if any.
Well, we have, the information has gone out from Renee about the September training, so make sure you let her know if you're planning to attend the training. I know that Laurel and the executive committee continue to work on interviews for a new executive director, and so that's kind of in a holding pattern, so I guess that'll TBD. Yeah, so July 8th, I guess. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I know I was getting a few looks. We will get to public comment just real shortly, so thank you. Any other announcements from the board? Okay, Stacy?
So I had the Governor's Council on Family Engagement monthly meeting, and they have set a date for their virtual Nevada Family Engagement Summit. And so I'll give you guys flyers. It's October 22nd, and it will be virtual. They have some pretty good speakers already lined up. We have flyers in English and Spanish. So, and there's some on the back if anybody else is involved. And then just to send out our sympathy and prayers to those families of the 3 teenagers that were involved in that serious fatal accident, and to know that we do recognize the tragedy, and that if we have a lot of resources at the district if they need those districts, but our prayers and our sympathies are out there for them.
Thank you, Stacy. Don, Lupe?
I don't have a report, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who voted for me during primary elections. I really appreciate your vote of confidence, and I hope I have the opportunity to serve another term. Thank you.
Laurel? I have no report either, so we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8, which is public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, the association reports.
Good evening, Jennifer Ward for the record. On behalf of the Carson City Builders Administration, we just want to thank Mr. Stokes for your humble leadership, for always rising above the noise and remaining focused on our students, and for your true example of integrity. And we just want to extend our deepest congratulations. Enjoy the next adventure.
Thank you. Brian?
Brian Wall, Associate President, for the record. Mr. President, trustees, Superintendent Stokes, thank you for being a wonderful mentor. I couldn't do this position and help all 500-plus certified educators without a superintendent that understands staff, understand what staff needs and everything President Varner mentioned. I'm also been working with NSCA as we continue to look at why teachers leave the profession, and then the issue of retention also. And I get, this summer, I've had more questions than ever about, so what has kept you in Carson City? And one of the big items that has kept me personally in Carson City is Superintendent Stokes. Knowing the relationship he has with staff throughout the whole school, regardless of if it's the bus driver, whether it's our custodians, whether it's parents, having a superintendent like Mr. Stokes able to meet with us, work with us, see eye to eye with us, disagree with us, has kept me coming back. The grass is not greener on the other side. It's not even different because we're Carson City. And that's where we have been through the last 13 years working with Mr. Stokes. And I think for a lot of us, having anybody in that leadership position that continues to put the students first and knowing the staff has to go hand in hand with that concept will continue to keep us here and cause us problems. Well, used to cause AJ problems because of longevity, and we keep sticking around. But that's the best part. We have that unique problem because of the superintendent you as the board continue to hire and the staff that the superintendent has put together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8, which is public comment. And the speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, speak into the microphone, identify yourself for the record, to limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and simply not repeat items and things that other speakers have talked about. At this time, I have a couple who have signed in, and we have Mrs. Susan Kima. 3 minutes. Okay. Just state your name for the record.
Todd Hess, Superintendent, Story County School District, little mountain to the north of us up there. The first thing I'd like to acknowledge is Mr. Stokes has accomplished everything that a superintendent could ever accomplish, and I figured he had it topped off tonight, but he's the first superintendent that's gotten a standing ovation in more than 2 years, so congratulations on that one. I also want to thank the board here. Carson City Schools, being born and raised here 6 generations, have had a long history of great leadership and talent and tradition at the superintendent's level and throughout Carson City Schools. And so I'm not just saying that because I'm about to talk about Mr. Stokes or sitting next to Mrs. Sue Kima or Mary Przinski, but it doesn't hurt. But I know AJ, I've worked with AJ for quite a while and seen everything that he can do, and he will certainly carry on that great torch as a leader for Carson, so congratulations on that. About 7 years ago, I was asked to be the superintendent up there in Story County. So it became very clear to me that I just had one thing to do, call Renee and set up a meeting with Mr. Stokes, which I met with him in his office that day. And I've always appreciated him as a great leader, a great mentor, and a great colleague. Over the years, we've gotten to know each other quite a bit better, and it's great to know that a kid from a small town outside of Salmon, Idaho, and a kid from a small town outside of Virginia City ran around the same mountains together, had a lot in common. So I appreciate that about Mr. Stokes as well. I know I can echo it for all Nevada superintendents, and you guys spoke so eloquently about him. There's nothing for me more really to add, except that he's a great colleague, a great leader, 37 years of excellence. More important for me, he's my friend. So congratulations to you and your family going forward, Mr. Stokes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. And then next, I think we have Mary Przinski.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now.
All right, great. All right, thank you. I just came to take credit for hiring him in 2021. Okay, I'm really good at hiring. It's already been mentioned that Mr. Stokes, of course, was superintendent down in Mineral County, and I really wanted him. When I became superintendent in 2021, I vacated the human resources position, and I knew Richard, and I knew he was a man of integrity, and I knew he had quiet leadership, so I wanted to hire him. So I got in touch with him, and his wife encouraged him as well. So they came up here with 4 kids who were great students, helped our test scores, so that was good too. And he's just been a wonderful leader. I was able to work with him for 7 years while I was soup, and he did a great job in the HR department. But most of all, I think the hardest thing in the world was, and it's already been mentioned, is leading people through this pandemic. And, I think of Ernest Hemingway. He said, "Courage is grace under pressure." That's a courageous man. That was tough. You could not please everybody. But always, I think at the top of his list was what's the best for the kids and for the staff here. And so anyway, I wish you the best. I hope that you can get that truck fixed that you've been working on forever. And maybe you can finally get that going. And I want to congratulate the board also on picking your next superintendent, AJ. He is a wonderful addition to this district. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan Kima.
I'm not going to be, Susan Kima for the record, I'm not going to be as eloquent as the last two speakers, and I know I could go on for 11 years' worth of pages and pages of accolades as well. I know that there were times that we agonized over budgets together, hard decisions, celebrated lots of things that the students have done. And so I just want to say thank you for being a mentor. And really, I was just here to see the new remodel. I wasn't so sure if people are going to let me back in. But I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done for the district. And something to think about is that, you know, I know it's kind of cliche, it's an old saying that takes a village to raise children, to educate children, but it's really true. And staff, students, and families all wanted to reach that North Star. And you understood that they all had different starting points and different interests, but yet wanted the same thing. And that your integrity allowed for a range of voices, and yet you were able to cut through to make sure students were prepared for success beyond school, high school. So thank you very much, and have fun fishing.
Nana Campbell.
I have a topic that's different, so may I step aside?
Okay. All right. Any other public comment? Yeah, just state your name for the record, please.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Chairman, Superintendent Stokes, it's been a pleasure for me. I know I squirm and I struggle, and it's tough for me to stay in place, but your calmness, your energy, I guess this is just the synergy of you, has helped me stay as calm as I am. Most of the time when I really try hard, it doesn't happen, but with you around, it seems to happen more. I just want to say I appreciate you very much through the comments that people have made that know you much better than most my possibility to. And there are some big shoes to fill. And so I wish you well, and I appreciate it very much. And I also want to say I appreciate the Nevada Appeal, the articles that they've put in to help support my understanding of what the school board's about and the information. Jessica Garcia did this particular article. It was in Saturday's paper, but it cued me to this particular meeting, and I didn't really understand the significance of it till I was here. I came early, I was so excited, and nearly missed it because I got studying again. But thank you very much, and thank you all.
Thank you. Any other in-person comment on Mr. Stokes' retirement? Seeing none, do we have any online public comment reference? I'll go back. Reference Mr. Stokes' retirement?
No, Mr. Varner, I do have other public comment. Thank you.
You say you have no more? Okay. Any other in-person public comment off of this topic we've been discussing? Nana, did you want to please come forward?
Ananda Campbell for the record. And I'm speaking tonight as a parent of students in the Carson City School District and a community member. I've heard a statistic or fact thrown out at many board meetings that Nevada ranks 51st among the states in District of Columbia. And that fact is thrown out there as proof that Carson City schools are failing. And as an educator, as a parent, as a community member, the statement just doesn't make sense to me because I'm there every day. It's in sharp contrast with my experience, with the experience my children have in Carson City schools, the experience of and everybody else that I know that is involved in schools and have children here at school. So it just got me thinking, like, where did this come from? And how, I mean, people aren't just making this up. They must have read it somewhere. So I just did a little bit of research, and I found a quality counts report from 2018, an article in Education Week. And this report does state that Nevada ranks 51st. But I wanted to know, like, what are they ranking? So, of course, I read the article, and these are the things that they're ranking for Nevada. And keep in mind, whenever Nevada as a whole is ranked, it's heavily weighted towards Clark and Washoe County. So this may or may not be true for Carson City. But the things that they're ranking are chance for success, which means opportunities to thrive from cradle to career. Things like family income level, parent education level, parent employment opportunities, parent English language proficiency. The school year's indicators are things like how many children are enrolled in preschool, how many children are enrolled in kindergarten, fourth grade math NAEP scores, eighth grade NAEP scores, the AP exam results, and how many young adults post-high school are enrolled in post-secondary education programs. And then they're also looking at adult indicators such as percentage of adults who have earned a post-secondary degree, a percentage of adults whose annual personal income reaches or exceeds the national median, and a percentage of adults who are steadily employed, defined as working full-time and year-round. So as you can see, most of that has nothing to do with the schools. So it's not that Nevada schools are 51st. It's Nevada is ranking 51st in chance for success with all of these indicators. It also takes into account school finance, equity, the degree to which education is funded equitably across the districts, and the average statewide per pupil spending across the districts. And then they look at K-12 achievement, and they weigh equally the current levels of achievement, changes over time, and equity. So I'm about out of time, but I want to say so much of this can be changed. And I think that those who are passionate about it can speak to the state and try to get some of these social programs changed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in person? Is that on?
Okay.
Thank you.
Karen Stevens for the record. Thank you for allowing me to be here for public comment. I would like to speak about my concern regarding the new school policy number 904 that is being proposed. That appears the school district and the school board no longer encourage parents and guardians meaningful participation and visits to their children's classrooms. Instead, all visits from parents and guardians should be prearranged with the school and show cause. No surprise visits. Hopefully no emergencies come up. If the school doesn't want you there, they will deny you entry. And this begs the question, what are they afraid of? I'm also concerned about where the school district got the funding to buy the technology equipment to facilitate the refusal to parents to enter their children's schools. Is this funding from the feds? If not, who else? Because we know grant funding always has strings attached. So we saw what happened to the strings attached with the COVID money, where we were forcing children to wear masks and highly encouraging them to take an emergency vaccine that didn't have any long-term results, which we're finding now has had very detrimental effects on children and adults. More people have been injured by the vaccine than were saved from it. So I would like to know these answers. Maybe I could get a hold of Ann and she could let me know where this funding is coming for these products. And I truly, truly hope that this isn't a method to keep parents out of the classroom, because So far, the things that I've seen over the last 14, 15 months going on has been very frightening and distasteful, to say the least. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other in-person public comment?
Heather Coe, and I want to start by thanking you for mentioning those kids and their families because it affected ours and it was really heartbreaking. So thank you. I woke up this morning shocked to see an article in the paper with my name mentioned in it. But I didn't wake up because I read it. I woke up to phone calls, people stopping by, and concerned parents that had stories and asked if I would be speaking tonight. So my concern is still the approved agenda. I do not like anything about anything sexually being pushed on our kids. And I do hope that it is an opt-in because I think it's really dangerous where we're going. But my other concern was listening to students and parents that reached out to me today. And they've had concerns for a decade, which kind of shocked me. And I guess that's when this Gay Sexual Alliance stuff started getting pushed on the kids, their posters in the schools, starting in 6th grade, which I think is really horrible that you would even do something like that to kids that young. I had stories of parents whose child came home in 6th grade saying they were bisexual, but they didn't know what it was. That's a problem. I mean, these kids are being confused, and I don't know exactly who it's coming from, but you're going to mess their minds up doing this. It's not right. And the other thing that going back 10 years was another mother and her daughter that had stress concerns over things that they were uncomfortable with. And everyone had the same thing to say, is that they were dismissed. And I found it to be a real problem. I mean, I don't know why parents aren't taken seriously with certain things, but the one thing that it all had in common came back to one student 10 years ago, I think it was, that was part of the LGBTQ community. And they had a parent who works for the school district, who is part of the Family Life Committee, who has family members that are teachers and a school board member, trustee. So I think that if there's family members that have that much influence, it's also a problem when so many students and parents came to me because everything that they were concerned about, they felt was just dismissed and overlooked.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Any in-person comment? Any additional in-person comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close in-person public comment and go to online public comment. Renee?
Thank you, Mr. Varner. This comment is from Robert Harris, and he is seeking clarification whether transgender 104 has been removed from the 6th grade curriculum permanently. He also plans on visiting the kiosk that he read about in the newspaper today. He plans on bringing his children with him, so please let him know if there's any preconditions needed to be met. I hope the president, superintendent, or vice president will reach out to me before Thursday with any information I may need before I head down to the kiosk. His email is available, and several folks have his phone number, so he's looking forward to hearing from someone with regards to that request. And Mr. Varner, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close online public comment then and move on to agenda item number 9, which is presentation and possible action to approve the renewal of property/casualty insurance package with Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool in an amount not to exceed $768,000 I should say $768,279.84. Self-insurance bond in amount of not to exceed $4,740. And excess workers' compensation policy with Star Insurance in the amount of $52,074 for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, as budgeted, and this is for possible action. We have Ann Sear, Andrew Fueling, perhaps, and Ryan, I'm going to try it. Garaventi. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. It's good to see everybody. Again, happy to come in and present. On a personal level, thanks, Mr. Stokes. Wish you well. AJ, look forward, or Mr. Fueling, look forward to dealing with you some more. Ryan Garaventa, Alpine Insurance. Been here for a long time, as you all know. We don't have a representative from the pool tonight, so I'm going to keep things fairly high level, but I can go into things if you want more. I'm a fan of the pool, and I know you guys are too. You're not my only school district that I have with the pool, and not the only public entity that I have with the pool. It's a good, complete product, reasonable pricing, and a lot of added important services that we don't have to belabor. You know about them and you use them, which is great. 2 years ago, we were tasked with trying to come up with another option, right? Bring some competition to the table. Ann and I filled out more applications and more in-person meetings and more virtual and meetings than I can even tell you. Probably hundreds of pages. And when I came in last year, I said, we are nowhere close to finding someone that can compete with the pool. It does not
Ryan,
exist.
can I interrupt you just for
Sure.
a second? Could you pull that mic a little
I'm
closer
sorry.
to your mouth? We just
Sorry.
want to catch all your words for the record. Thank
Sure.
you.
Sorry, my voice is generally loud, so I thought I'd keep it away. We have, in the past 12 months, done almost the same amount of work looking for another entity to come in and compete. And I will tell you, we have made progress and we have gotten closer than I have ever gotten closer, again, in the years of trying to find a competitive outlet for yours and other school districts. I will tell you, however, although we are closer, we are not prepared to bring in another option to compete with the pool at present. It's a slow process, and professionally, I'm not willing, unless I'm 110% sure that it's of equal value, of equal coverage, and of equal service to bring it before you, and I'm not. But we are much closer than we've been, and we'll see where the next couple years go. I'd love to bring in something for you guys to review. That being said, the good news is, again, the pool is the player, the pool is the place, the coverage is the same as last year's policy. There, and again, this is where I'm going to keep this fairly high level, but the price does have an increase from last year, and that is reflective of the reinsurers who are afraid of wildfire. Property rates are not going down, and coverage is harder to find. It's the place we live, in the world we live. It is what it is. Auto is still a concern in Nevada. That's something that drives pricing as well. And, you know, you have a large cyber liability limit, and that is something that continues, not specific to you. We are seeing claims across all lines of industry, and it's a real, it's an unfortunate but real risk. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, the coverage is all similar to what it was last year, and we can go through it line by line if you like, or if you just want to give me any specific questions, I'm happy to handle them. Let me know. I'm here for you.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the board? Stacy?
So that was my biggest concern with this was the cyber one. So I'm glad to see that that was upped substantially, actually, in this one from last year. So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate all the time you guys have done to put in, because it was one of those concerns where we were getting asked and asked and asked.
Sure.
And so we know it was a lot of work, and it's still going to be, but we do appreciate you.
Happy to
looking at
do it.
And we are happy with the pool. We just want to know that we're getting the best. So we do appreciate that.
Thank you, Stacy. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then this is for possible action, so I would entertain a motion.
I can make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve as submitted the proposed renewal of property casualty insurance package with Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool in an amount not to exceed $793,279.84. Self-insurance bond in the amount not to exceed $4,740, and excess workers' compensation policy with Star Insurance Company in the amount of $52,074 for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, as budgeted.
Dawn, can I ask you to correct your motion to the amount that is in the agenda, because we can't take an action on an amount that's higher than that. So the agenda is $768,279.84. So we have to take action
Okay, I'm
consistent
sorry, I
with
was
that.
reading the,
Revised.
that was revised, is
Yeah,
that wrong?
because we'll have to bring that other
Okay,
amount back at a different time.
okay.
I'll second with the updated amount.
By Mike. Any board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any public discussion on the motion? Seeing no in-person public comments?
Mr. Varner, if I could, just so I see some puzzled faces here on the board. And in full disclosure here, the amount of money that was posted in the agenda left out $25,000 of agent compensation. And so because that number was not listed in the original motion, we will bring that back at our next meeting and make sure that that gets agendized appropriately. But in the meanwhile, to pass the plan cost as it has been reported, that lets us carry on with our insurance plan without having that lapse. And so, Ryan, does that make sense? Do you understand? And certainly we would try to explain that better if necessary.
Sure, if you'd like me to comment, and I'm, okay.
I forget if I asked for board discussion on the motion. I think I did. Seeing none. Any in-person public comment on the motion? Seeing none. Do we have any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote then. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10. Discussion on proposed changes to CCSD Policy 904, school visitors. This is the first reading and it's for discussion only. And Ann Sear is going to be presenting. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, President Varner. I'd just like to say good evening to the trustees and the staff that are here this evening to honor Mr. Stokes and members of our public. Tonight I have the pleasure of presenting Policy and Regulation 904, which relate to school visitors. Before we move into the reading and discussion, I've prepared a brief presentation so that I can provide you some background on how we have welcomed visitors into the schools in the past and how we plan to continue this important tradition of community and family engagement. So I'll just take a brief moment of your time. Okay, very well. Let's try that. Okay. So in recent years, the school district has made several advancements in our security profile. We have replaced and expanded the surveillance system. Our intrusion detection systems have been upgraded, and over the past 2 years, we've been installing electronic access control. All of these security enhancements are part of a broader goal called enterprise security management, which is just simply a way of integrating these systems and supporting them with human policies and procedures to ensure that the same safety and security guidelines, protocols, and procedures are consistently followed at all facilities. So just getting all of our schools practicing the same procedures and using the same security tools. I'd like to recognize a few of our important partners in safety and security. These organizations have assisted us in the selection and priority of security enhancements and keep us up to date on best practices. We have consulted with the Department of Homeland Security, the Carson City Sheriff's Office, and we use many of the resources that are published by two very well-known organizations, the nonprofit Partner Alliance for Safer Schools, otherwise known as PASS, and the I Love You Guys Foundation. The Partner Alliance for Safer Schools, or PASS, provides school administrators, school boards, and public safety and security professionals with guidelines for implementing a layered and tiered approach to securing and enhancing the safety of school environments. Established in 2014, PASS brings together experience from the education community, law enforcement, and the security industry to develop and support a coordinated approach that can assist school administrators in making effective use of proven security practices that are specific to K-12 environments and informed decisions on security investments. In 2015, PASS first released the Safety and Security Guidelines for K-12 schools, which remains the most comprehensive information available on best practices specifically for securing school facilities available. The fifth edition, published in 2020, is recognized by both state and federal school safety commissions, including the Sandy Hook Commission. The primary focus of the PASS guidelines are physical security and life safety, and recommendations are limited to the related policies, regulations, procedures, equipment, and technology that deal with physical building safety. It should be noted that the school safety and security checklist is not an all hazards assessment. That's something that we do using other tools. It is focused primarily on the mission areas of protection and prevention, and we have other resources that we look to, such as FEMA, for guidance on mitigation, response, and recovery. The security profession and industry has always recognized that the best approach to security is a layered approach. Consistent with the practice of implementing security in depth and the site security approach recommended by the Department of Homeland Security, the guidelines describe approaches with 5 physical layers for school facilities. And this diagram that I have displayed here just defines what those 5 layers of protection are. We begin at the district level, and that is where we see policies and procedures that are applied on a district-wide basis. And then we move out to the property perimeter and what type of security enhancements can be installed around the border of the property. And then we look into the parking lot and what types of security enhancements can secure the parking lot. Moving into the building perimeter, we find things like our single point entrances and various things that we install at the perimeter of the building. And then going into the building, classroom and interior perimeter. So the PASS guidelines and the security checklist that they publish provide a lot of guidance in terms of what types of layers of protection a school district can install or consider at these 5 layers. Okay? So the district layer of protection includes development and adoption of school safety processes, plans, technologies, and procedures for ensuring these measures are updated and for consistency with evolving best practices. If we dive a little deeper into the district-wide layer, I have kind of given you a blown-up here of the checklist as it pertains to some of the recommendations that are made at the district-wide layer. And that we find, I've circled it in red, that the visitor management systems are given high priority and are identified as a best practice. A consistent approach to welcoming visitors provides for a badge system, electronic check-in and check-out, and a rapid background check. So I'm going to briefly explore each of those 3 components of the visitor management system. Okay, so on your left here, we have the I'm a School Visitor sticker, and this was very much the way we welcomed visitors into our schools. If you were visiting the Dolphins, you got a little dolphin sticker, and if you were visiting the Pirates, we popped a pirate on you. So the new system that we are using produces a personalized ID badge that provides a photo, the visitor's name, the date and time of their visit, who they are visiting, and what area of the school they are going to. So by providing each visitor with a personalized badge, school staff may greet them and assist them in locating the area that they are visiting. In the event of an emergency, first responders are able to identify our visitors in the same way that they are able to identify our staff by looking at their badge. Prior to implementing this system, visitors were given stickers that often include a picture of the school mascot. PASS recommends that badges be date and time stamped, include a photo, name, who they're visiting, and what area of the building they are visiting.
So Ann, just on that, how much more time does that take though for the office staff?
It's very quick, about a minute, yeah. And the kiosk it can be self-serve. It doesn't actually involve any staff unless someone requires assistance. You just merely scan your ID and it prints out your badge.
Stacy, if I could, I've used that system, and it's really, really quick.
Correct. Yes. Okay. So, electronic sign-in and sign-out. Once checked into the system, the log of visitors may be accessed from anywhere, printed out, and used to account for all persons in the building. Previously, visitors signed into a paper log attached to a clipboard, and this information was then kept at the front office. And during an emergency, that area may not be accessible, or that record may have been destroyed by whatever the emergency was. For these reasons, it is helpful to have access to a visitor log in electronic format. And additionally, law enforcement may find this information helpful when investigating a person's movements in and around our schools. So essentially, it allows us to quickly identify who is in the building and assists in accounting for all persons during an emergency.
And before we move on, if I could, if by some chance somebody doesn't have a state-issued ID or government ID, and they just show up and they need to get in the school, is there another system that they can still gain access to the school?
Yes, so I've produced a frequently asked questions document, and we'll put that on the district website and also provide that to the administrators. But we do have, protocols in place for assisting people who don't have their ID on them or their ID is not scanning. We're not going to stop them at the door and say, no, you can't come in. Principals can verify their identity through Infinite Campus. Oftentimes, the office manager recognizes this person. So this is not to be kind of like a hard stop. It's just a tool. Okay? So the last thing that this visitor management system is doing electronically is it's conducting a rapid background check. The first, they're going to scan their government-issued ID, and there are a variety of government-issued IDs that the system will accept. And then the system is going to screen for 3 security flags. And the first screening is checking to see if the person is on a registered sex offender list. The second is looking to see if that person has been trespassed from school property. And the last is looking to see if there are any protective orders that would prohibit the visitor from contacting a person at that school property. This process takes less than 1 minute. If none of these red flags appear, the badge is printed and the visitor is welcomed beyond the school's lobby. If any of these flags appear, the person will meet with a school administrator and potentially a school resource officer to discuss their visit to the school. If the person is allowed to visit, it may require additional security measures, such as monitoring or someone accompanying them through the building. Okay, so I'm just going to pause for a moment now and play for you I have a demonstration. Hopefully we can get it to work. I'm having technology issues. I need to do what? Yep. Nope, it's forwarding. Yeah, I'm not getting I'm wingding. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Renee. Okay. Well, if you are interested in viewing this video, you can go to Raptor Technologies, which is the website of the manufacturer, the software company. Raptor Technologies is the vendor that we selected. There was a question a little earlier about how this got funded. This was funded with a federal STOP grant, which is a Department of Justice grant. We had a letter of support from the Department of Homeland Security. It was not fully implemented upon funding because of COVID. We were not having visitors in our buildings. But this year we were able to fully implement the system. And I took a look this morning, and as of since January 1st of 2022, we have screened 3,177 visitors using this system. So it's been in use this school year, and the feedback that we have received from parents, our SROs, and our schools has been very positive. So we are very excited to continue the implementation of this system and continuing to welcome visitors into our schools, recognizing that their participation is a vital part of our school community. So that concludes my brief presentation. If it pleases the board, we can move on to the first reading of the policy and reg.
Laurel, and then I think Lupe.
Okay, I actually have a couple comments on it. I like how this is cleaning up the policy and then putting the specifics into the regulation, because specifics often change. One of my first question is the third sentence, where we start with volunteers and community partners. I'm wondering if we want to just also include parents, guardians, volunteers, and community partners are also encouraged to visit schools in order to support the district in meeting academic goals for the students, because that really is who we want to be able to come. And then my other question on that is on the second page under 4, with the listing of the statutes under what unlawful acts are. I'm wondering, that's not included in the regulation, which we'll get to, but I'm wondering if you can go back and talk to legal counsel and review and see if that type of statement should be, whether that should be included in the regulation.
So this was reviewed by Mr. Russell, and he felt that that last sentence, this regulation further is intended to comply with all applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations, kind of covered that piece. Rather than listing them out individually, he felt that we would have to update the reg every time they update the NRS. So to just say that it is our intention to comply.
Okay, thanks.
Lupe, you had something, I think?
So yeah, so when I hear the word background check, my first thought is this is going to create fear for many parents, especially for our parents that are already hesitant about visiting the schools. How would we be able to clarify any misconception they may have about this process?
So thank you, Trustee Ramirez. That's an excellent question. And I think that frequently asked question document and having that widely available and well distributed will respond to a lot of those concerns. Because this system is not conducting a criminal background check. That would take a lot more time. It's just merely checking one registry, a sex offender registry, and then looking to see if this person has been trespassed or has like a temporary protective order.
So it
Mike?
doesn't check immigration status or anything?
Correct.
Okay.
And those records are not maintained in any database. It's a reach out and look. We don't keep that information in any database.
Mike, I think you had something?
Well, and I think that when it comes to student and staff security at school, you know, I think this is necessary as somebody who runs a school. We know our parents. When those people come to the door, when they show up at Fremont or my school, we know our parents. You know, we're finishing the conversation we had the morning when they dropped off their kid. But if somebody shows up that we don't know, you know, in this day and age with the unfortunate circumstances that are happening in our society, a little check, I feel more secure with that. I mean, it's not going to solve all the issues. But
No,
if we stop somebody on a sex registry from having free reign in an elementary school as a principal, I would be very comfortable with that.
And most of those individuals are aware of the fact that they're not to be within 300 yards of a school. So if they're attempting to come into the school when they know that they're prohibited, then there's already a red flag for us, right? So, and I also feel it's important to take good care of our visitors, that if something happens, we have an emergency, that we can quickly produce a list of who is here, who is a registered visitor here today, and begin that search and rescue operation with, you know, some adequate listing, a roster, if you will. So.
Just one more question too, because I remember volunteering when my oldest, who graduated a couple years ago, began kindergarten. And in order to volunteer, I had to have a background check and be fingerprinted. Will our volunteers still go through that process if they're volunteering, or will this check be enough for them to volunteer in the classroom?
Well, I'm going to be spending some more time with you this summer. Next month, we'll be talking about volunteers. Okay. But there is a module within this system that handles and processes and checks in and checks out volunteers. It's a little more beefed up.
Because volunteers have more contact
Correct.
with students than regular visitors. And just,
Laurel, I seem to remember, I don't know if it was the last legislative session or the one before, there was something in NRS about fingerprints. And Mr. Stokes, do you remember what that was? Or Ann, you might. I remember
Yes, so
talking about it.
fingerprint background checks are required for any individual who is left unsupervised. And our volunteer management policy does not allow for that to happen. So all volunteers are supervised.
I know you haven't read the policy yet, but The only suggestion I'd have is anywhere you have parent, I'd have / guardian, just to make it consistent throughout.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I know you haven't got any policy yet, but I wanted to clarify because I did get calls today with concerns that this policy and regulations was going to prevent parents or other people from visiting the schools. And when I read the policy, I didn't see anything in there like that. So just to
No.
clarify, this will not stop anybody that has a rightful need to go in to visiting the school.
Yes, I
you.
think the board's policy statement is clear. It was clear before, and it remains clear today, that it is the intention of the Board of Trustees to welcome visitors and volunteers into the schools. This regulation change is merely reflecting the procedural changes involved with the use of the electronic visitor management system. But the policy statement itself remains very clearly in favor and in support of community involvement, parent engagement, family engagement, community engagement. So,
Thank you.
We're coming. Just for clarification, I completely understand the purpose of this, and I am in full support. I just feel that we need to do massive communication to parents
Yes.
to make sure that they understand why we're doing it and that they are welcome to the schools.
absolutely. Yeah, and this is not something new. If people have moved here from other school districts, they've probably been familiar with a system like this. Raptor is used in over 50,000 schools, and they are the largest visitor management system in the school space. When we originally looked at Raptor, we looked at 3 different visitor management systems. And by the time we got to the decision-making point, they had already acquired Lobby Guard, which is the visitor management system that Washoe County School District uses. So they have since acquired a few other VMSs, but they're definitely the predominant system in the school space.
And I had one other concern that somehow this policy is going to restrict parents' access to curriculum.
There's
I
no
didn't see that in-
reference to
yeah, I didn't see that
curriculum.
in there either.
And this, does not have anything to do with curriculum.
Thank you.
I know that there have also been some concerns about restricting public access to the schools. And just to be clear, public access to schools has always been restricted. For over 50 years, we have not opened our doors and allowed the public to just walk in during the instructional day. There's always been some method of screening people and preventing disruption to the classroom experience, and we're not doing anything more than what's been done in the past.
It just seems like a more efficient way to do business.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have them, clogged up in the lobby quite so much, especially when they all come for like a little lunch and learn or something like that. So once they've been through once, it goes really quick.
And I'm just thinking back to the PTA days and doing the parents coming to lunch and having them sign in before they go to the cafeteria. This makes that process it would make this so much faster.
And I really like the aspect, because when we did all those events, nobody knew who was there, where they were at. I mean, if there was a fire and I was a volunteer, you might not even know that I was on there because I didn't sign up or whatever, because
Right.
we've done that because we were there all the time. So I'm really glad to see the safety aspect for the people that do come to visit and get involved. And I love that you simplified our policy. Like Crossman said, that we don't need all that verbiage in the
Yeah.
policy. We need that in the regulation.
It had been 2016 that it was last reviewed and updated. So to make the policy statement clearly separate from the regulatory, the process, the procedure that belongs in a regulation was a good time to do it. And this just gave us an opportunity to look at that, so.
Any other questions reference the changes to policy 904 before we move on to item number 11, discussion of the regulation? Seeing none, at this time, we'll go ahead and, since it's only for discussion only, so no public comment, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, discussion on the newly proposed CCSD Regulation 904, visitors to district property, and this is for discussion only. And again, Ann Sear will be presenting.
Thank you. So I'm not going to read through this line by line for you, but I'll just kind of hit on the main portions of the regulation. The purpose of the regulation, of course, is to ensure the safety of students and staff and our visitors by identifying visitors, volunteers, and parents, assisting administrators, school staff, and school resource officers in identifying trespassers and others who may be prohibited from entering the school, and providing administration and first responders with the names of people in the school in the event of an emergency. So those are the three primary objectives of the visitor management system. The scope, this regulation applies to all school property that's under the ownership or control of the district during school hours. So to be clear here, we do not expect that people are going to run their identification through Raptor to attend a football game or some type of after-school event that is open to the public. This is merely a security enhancement that is in use during the school day. Okay? A visitor is essentially anyone entering school property who is not a staff member checking into their regularly assigned building or a student enrolled at the school. And then the reg goes on to discuss public access to district property and facilities. This language is really no different than the language that was in the policy where it described the procedures previously, that school properties are primarily used for educational programs and during instructional hours are not open to the general public. And then it goes on to talk about visitor protocols, which is essentially the procedure that is followed when somebody checks in at the front desk and what is expected and how folks who are flagged will be addressed. The storage of the logs, what to do if the system is down. We're going to use a paper sign-in sheet. We're still going to do our thing. We're going to go old school. Those are the visitor protocols. Then the legal requirements and associated documents. We reference our policy on volunteers, the policy on school visitors, the policy on family engagement, and the policy on the use of school facilities.
I do have something on the purpose on paragraph number 1, I guess, or identified visitors, volunteers, parents. I just put /guardians in there.
Okay. As you said before, everywhere where we have parents, we will add guardians.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And then just for clarification, the denial of a visit during times of student assessment. I know I had some questions about that. Maybe you might want to address that and why that is.
We don't allow visitors during testing.
It's illegal
It's
apparently, and it's a
prohibited.
test violation.
Yeah.
Violate the testing protocol.
Correct.
And then our tests would be invalidated, and then we would get in trouble.
Yeah, I had a question from a public member, so I wanted to get that out. Thank you. Go ahead, Laurel.
Just on page 2, bullet point 5, I just think the sentence is a little clunky, and where a visitor's visit may be limited or ended for various reasons, such as, and then we've got the colon where we're starting to list them, interference with or interruption of a staff member in the performance of his or her duties. I would end it there and put a comma and just delete is prohibited, and then, because I think it says what the reason for it, and then just continue with disruption of educational process or operations, safety concerns, or emergency situations. I think that makes it read a little easier.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Lupe?
Okay, on number 6, visitors shall not be denied based on solely on immigration status. I'm wondering if that is implying that you're gonna be scrutinizing the person by what they look, how they look like. So, do we need to have that there, or can we?
I will discuss it with Mr. Russell. It was in the draft, and he did not recommend removing it. I believe it is included in Washoe County School District's visitor management regulation, so.
Lupe, I'm wondering, if you take that out and then you have a rogue administrator that says, oh, I think this is an illegal citizen, we're not going to let them in the school, denying access to a parent's classroom with their child. You know what I mean? I think that that's more for a protection that I think we should keep in there.
But
Mike, I think what Lupe is pointing about is she doesn't want parents to think they will be checking immigration status by
Right.
that being
That's-
there. So somehow to maybe put another sentence with that says immigration status is not part of the check.
there you go.
You know, something like
There you
that.
go. Yeah.
Because I think that's
Clarification on
what
that.
you're worried about.
I understand.
Clarification on that.
Thank
yes.
you.
And then the other question I have on number 9, visitors upon request are required to provide a driver's license. I thought everyone needed to have some sort of a identification.
Or, yeah, it says, or other government-issued
It's just
identification.
upon request, so it's going to be requested to everyone, right?
Yes, so remove
Or
upon
request.
request.
That's what I would,
Okay?
do you guys agree?
Anything else, Lupe? Go down the line, anything from Mike? Thank you. Stacy? And Don? Laurel, anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I look forward to bringing it back in a perfected manner.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 12, discussion and 6-month review of the Carson City School District Plan for a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services for the 2022-2023 school year. This is for discussion only. Mrs. Fuson will be presenting. You're ready.
Thank you. I'm right here. Tasha Fuson for the record. Although Governor Sisolak announced the end of the state of emergency related to COVID-19 pandemic on May 6, 2022, the Federal American Rescue Plan, also known as ARP, requires all LEAs or local educational agencies receiving ARP ESSER funds to maintain plans for safe return to instruction and continuity of services plan. That's a mouthful, but we previously called it our reopening plan. So it's just a title change for continuing purposes of the need for the plan. We have to maintain this plan through September 30th of 2023. The only change in the plan, expectations as a result of the end of the emergency, is that the plan no longer has to provide for ongoing distance education needs of students. So districts are still permitted, of course, to offer distance ed programs if you have a distance ed application on file and approved by the Department of Education, which we do. And I brought that to you, I think, just about a month ago. So the other part to the update of the plan is that we have to continue to note within our plan how we're going to maintain the health and safety of our students and the extent to which the district has adopted policies in accordance with the CDC or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommendations, and that we are not required now to have specific policies around masking, social distancing, or other measures. So those are the changes that you're going to see within the plan in your packets. You have 2 copies. You have one that tracks changes, but you also have a clean one. The reason for that is because when you do, as we've talked before, but when you do a lot of track changes, it really throws off the formatting. So I wanted to make sure you had the plan as it would look as we turn it in. So what we'll do, though, for the purpose of our discussion, is look at the one with the track changes. Okay, but that's why you have the clean plan in there as well. So at the very top of the plan on page 1, what you see is a change of title there. Again, we called it our Safe Schools Reopening Plan and Path Forward for Distance Education. Now all of the guidance documents that we're receiving from Department of Education and from the federal government are referring to it as a plan for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. So I figured we might as well change our plan title to match the guidance that we're getting from the state and the feds. That's the only reason why there's a title change on that. Then you also have, of course, the change of dates from 2021-22 school year to the 22-23 school year and the revision date. In the introduction, again, what you're seeing there is simply basically an updating of dates. In the second paragraph, I removed the reference to Pioneer Academy and distance education because, again, that's now covered back to our original district's distance education plan, so I removed that. In paragraph 3 of the introduction, I note the name change there of the plan. And I did add a 4th paragraph that talks about the fact that we do have an end of the state emergency for COVID-19. So that's an addition on that one. If you move into or onto page 4, or excuse me, page 3, my apologies. Under communications, you'll see that there's only a change of dates or years on that date. Under emergency management, I do apologize. I'm going to sidebar for a moment. In the executive summary, I failed to note that in the track change form, it's in red and blue. Most of the time when you track changes, it's in red only, but Anne assisted me with some changes, and I didn't realize that when you have 2 authors making changes, it puts them in different colors. So anything in red and blue are the changes. So my apologies for that, but that's why there's 2 different colors, because there's 2 different folks working on the plan. So again, under emergency management, you'll see that there's new introduction. We removed the old introduction just to clarify that we are working in partnership with the Carson City Health and Human Services to monitor community health and how that's being done. So really not a change in process, just a change in introduction there. If you look then on page 5, you'll see under reopening for school buildings and grounds, a removal of quite a bit of information. So anything that referenced remote learning, social distancing, or masking, I removed from this reopening piece. So that's what is now redlined out. If you look at page 6, where you'll see it actually somewhat added back is because, again, by the direction from the Department of Education, we did have to put in there that we were going to adhere to policies, as I stated, with from the CDC and also from our local health agency. So under 5, that talks about when that kicks in. So that's the new section under reducing the likelihood of an outbreak and responding to outbreaks. So should we have another outbreak, then of course we have to act in accordance with the guidance from those 2 agencies. Those are the big parts under that section. If you move to page 7, I changed Pioneer High's name to Pioneer Academy, struck out just a couple words to make it more consistent with present tense. On page 8, again, I struck out in there any references under transportation that had to do with social distancing. Under student attendance, all of that was rewritten basically to say that we're going back to pre-COVID student attendance processes and procedures. So we had to put a new paragraph in there basically stating that. If you move to page 11, we had a section on social distancing singularly or just as a standalone. Again, it's struck out, it's removed. In transportation at the bottom of 11, again, another removal of any nature referring to having to socially distance students on our buses. So that's removed. On page 12, Under wellness, I removed a statement about temperature checks at home. We, of course, want parents to still continue to monitor their children's health. But when a child comes to school and is feeling under the weather or is running a temperature or a staff member, then we ask them to go to the health office and we can check their temperatures there. So that's why it was removed from that section. On page 13, I removed the 2 bullet points under other hygiene and safety precautions, stating that we weren't going to have in-person or large events anymore. That's not necessary. We can go back to pre-COVID. Again, inviting families and community in, so we struck those bullet points from that section. And then on page 15, again, really under the conclusion, what you're seeing is, again, just an update on the school year and some changes in tense to make it a present tense versus kind of past tense, and in addition of tonight's meeting. So that's really the only changes. There's not content changes per se, other than removal of those provisions that were set forth in the guidance we got from Department of Ed.
Thank you. Mike, go ahead.
Tasha, I have a question. Under the attendance, it says after they make up their missed assignments, then their absences won't count. So is there some way we need to track that, or is that just part of the school's responsibility and we're just explaining this is our process?
That is correct. That's part of the school's responsibility, and this is part of our process. So that is in accordance with state law around attendance. Typically, what that means is even if a parent calls in, and by state law, if a parent calls their student in ill and the student misses 2 or 3 days of school and fails to do their makeup work, the school can overturn those absences and make them unexcused versus excused because the student didn't make up the work. So that's in state law. Typically, it's very, very rare that a school will do that unless we have a student who is missing excessive amounts of school and we are not having success in working with the family to address the causes. So when a student misses extensive amounts of school, we'll call a team together, the parent, usually the school nurse, school counselor, school administrator, teachers, try to figure out what the cause of the absences are. Is it a medical issue? Is it an emotional issue? And then come up with a plan to meet the needs of the student. So sometimes that's a medical plan, sometimes it's a 504, Americans with Disabilities plan to help the student with access. You know, there's other ways that we help support that student, but we want students to engage in the school process. Unfortunately, sometimes we have, luckily it's rare, but sometimes we have instances where families do not want to work hand in hand with the school. And what we fear in that situation is sometimes when students are kept out of school by their families, sometimes you see it to watch younger siblings or even to help maybe elderly family members. But there's always ways that we can work with those families to help make sure that the student is accessing education, right? So we go through those pieces, and a student can be retained based on lack of attendance at school, and students can lose credit for academic classes even if they're passing them for lack of attendance to school. So that's the part in Nevada school or Nevada law as it relates to attendance. Again, very rare that we would go back and back up an excused parent absence, but legally speaking, we can if that schoolwork is not done.
Thank you. Laurel?
So just for my own clarity, so then if the student is absent, can the parent go and pick up the work from the school and take it home for the student to work on it while he's at home?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we highly encourage families, if they think their student's going to be out for more than one day. Usually if a student is only going to be out one day, it's not necessary to prearrange or pick up work. The student can pick up the work when they return to school. But if you have a student who's going to be out for 2 or 3 or 4 days, it's very, very helpful when a parent calls. We can do a homework request and we can gather the work for the student and have it picked up by the parent or sometime an older sibling. Or family relative. We have that often, or even a neighborhood friend who lives next door, that kind of thing. But we make sure that we send that home, and then they can get, as they feel well enough to do schoolwork, they can work on it.
Thank you. Laurel?
Just one change under, well, it's on page 7 in the clean copy. right at the top, I'll wait till you find it, where any student, staff, or volunteers with a temperature. I didn't notice this the first time we went through, but I think we should change it to fever because the last year my kids have been asking me when I check, do I have a temperature? And I say, yes, you do, but you don't have a fever because we should all have a temperature. So just thinking we should
Duly
change that.
noted. Thank you. I will make that update. Thank you.
Lupe, do you have something
So on
else?
that same page, on page number 7, on the top, let's see, the second to last bullet, students sent home will not be allowed to return to school until they have been symptom-free without the use of fever-reducing medication. That to me sounds a little too harsh. Is it possible to change it to may not return instead of will not be allowed to return?
Well, May seems like you have an option and you don't have an option. So you are not allowed to return to school until you are fever-free or symptom-free for 24 hours. That is the current guidelines that have been set forth through COVID and through the CDC and our local health association. So I get what you're saying, but that is the actual guidance says will not until you're 24 hours free. It's not an option.
That is something that a lot of schools are struggling with, is kind of communicating that to parents. So I think we'd be kind of making it a little bit more murky.
Stacy?
Just a comment. Thank you for the way that you did this with the clean copy and then the corrections. That made it a lot easier to read for me. I appreciated that.
Thank you very much. Any other
Definitely.
board discussion? Questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, this was for discussion only, so no in-person comments. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 13, discussion and possible action to approve renewal of agreement between.
Mr. President, I feel like in the executive summary or somewhere, they were wanting us to see if there was comments from the public. Did I misread that?
No, I think for discussion only, there's no public comments called for.
Sorry, normally there is not. You are correct, Trustee Walker. And I apologize. I typically do not do the updates on this. It's usually Mrs. Dockery, but as you all know, she's retiring or has retired. So I did forget to mention that.
So don't accuse me of not reading your notes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, and it's simply because we are looking for community and family input if they have questions or points or clarification. So although it's not typical because it's not an action item, if folks had input or questions, I would be happy to entertain them or give them, an explanation of why we have what we have in the plan.
But you're exactly right. Public comments not called for. Thank you. Go on to agenda item number 13, discussion and possible action to approve renewal of agreement between Chartwell's Food Service Management Consultant and the Carson City School District from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023 at a cost to the district of an administrative fee not to exceed $55,030 and a management fee not to exceed 0.08809 per meal, with funding to come from the Nutrition Fund, and this is for possible action. And presenting to be Mr. Fueling.
Thank you, President Varner. So this evening, each year, just a quick step back. So the Carson City School District uses what's called a food service management company to help consult and help run our program. We have done this with an original RFP back in 2010, and we had a different company with us for about 10 years. In the last RFP back in 2020, we selected, or the committee that RFP committee selected Chartwell's. So Chartwell's won that and dove right into a COVID year. So one of the interesting things is still have not had a normal year with Chartwells. But regardless of performance by any means, we are required by the USDA to bring, it is always a one-year agreement. So each year we have to bring back a revised agreement to continue on into the next year if we so choose. And it is a maximum of 5 years. So this would be the third year, going into the third year with the support of Chartwells in our nutrition program. We have what is called a cost reimbursable contract. So in the original agreement we had back in 2010, we had what was called a fixed fee contract, where it's for every meal that was served, we would pay a fee to that vendor. We changed that in the next round and continued it this round to a cost reimbursable contract. So we have an invoice meeting every month, and we actually get to see all the nitty-gritty detail of all the costs that are taken on by Chartwells. And then we can kind of negotiate through that if there's any questions, but then we reimburse them for those costs. So the dollar amounts that you see here in the agenda title are the management fee and administrative fee. So those are not necessarily reimbursable costs. That's just charges for then their consulting services for the program itself. So there's a flat fee for that administrative fee, and then the management fee is based on a per meal $0.08809 or 8.809 cents per meal. So that is an increase from the current year of 6.9%. So when they look at their costs and maintaining kind of the cost structure that these types of programs have, they're looking at inflationary costs just like most businesses. And so that in the prior year, it increased 3%. And then this year, 6.9. And again, that reflects the inflationary pressures that we are seeing around us. It's not the 8.6%, which I believe was the latest figure that was released by the feds, but it again reflects the realities of costs around us. One thing to note, in the original RFP, in year 3, the financial guarantee, and I should have put a little bit more explanation of this. The financial guarantee mentioned is basically saying your food service fund or nutrition fund will not run a deficit greater than X, whatever that number is. And so in the original RFP, that number in year 3 dropped it down into the $100,000 range. And so one of the many issues we've had with going through COVID is that Chartwell still has not had a normal year with us. And from that original RFP agreement, our enrollment, as you know, has dropped about 5%, which the number of meals impacts the amount of reimbursements that you're ultimately going to receive. We've had staffing issues that continue, and we're going to be meeting to talk about that next week a little bit more and looking at some different options. One of the hopes was to really expand the program at Carson High School, and as my son knows all too well, who attends there, they have limited options because they don't have enough staff to run all the different stations that they want to run, which is a part of their RFP plan that when they first submitted this to us. So it's reflecting some of those changes, kind of what in their language they would call potential exceptions, things that could impact the outcome, financial outcome for the district. The last thing then, and this is really impactful, is while we knew that the governor was considering using the state's ESSER funds to cover the costs of meals for all students in the state of Nevada, we did not have that as an absolute. We didn't know it was a certainty. It was just most likely. So the interim finance committee, we had this approved before the interim finance committee met, and I believe that was last week, which officially made it official that the state was going to put ESSER funds towards that. So that will certainly help this. And what I would say is that with that, really with that item specifically, I in no way expect a deficit near this number. I would expect it to be much lower. This year is the first year where, I mean, when we finish with the audit, I very much expect us to actually have a surplus in this fund. It makes a really big deal financially when meals are free and the reimbursements are coming in, because the participation, the number of students taking meals is so much higher. So again, so I do expect this to be much better. That number, what it was assuming kind of status quo, and that is certainly not, from a revenue standpoint, that is not where we are. So I think that's about all I have. So I'll take any questions if there are any.
Any questions, comments from the board? Stacy?
So, and I know it's been unusual because we've had COVID, but I really want to get to the point where we don't have what we had the last 5 years with Airmark and getting worse and worse. And you bring this up the couple days before the contract's up. So I'd really like to see this moved up a little. I know it's hard because we don't finish the year, but maybe at least get some input 3 months before in case we do have to go out to an RFP, or if there are concerns by board members that things aren't going well like we've had in the past. I think Chartwell's has been great. I think it's been a great addition, but like you said, we won't know until, we have a normal year. But I'd really like to see this moved up a little just to get eyes on it, because I know we always have the committee itself meets and it has their review at the end of the year. They used to. So just for next year, maybe bring it up and just see if there's any concerns by anybody before we get to 2 days before the contract.
Sure, we can certainly do that.
Any other comments or questions? The only thing I have is just for clarification for the public. I know you and I have discussed this, but even though the state's reimbursing the cost of the meals or payment, the $55,000 we'll still have to pay, and the 0.08809 per meal is still a cost to the district.
Correct. So regardless of anything that the governor has done or anything else that would come in terms of impacting the revenue stream, their costs would not change. So that $55,000 or $55,030 and that 0.08809 would not change with or without the governor's.
And I think what you really have to consider in that matter was it's been 12 or 13 years now that we've had a food management company running. So it's only costing us $55,000. When we were trying to run this program by ourselves, we were at $750,000 was our transfer the first year I was on the board to the nutrition system. Now we have a $55,000 bill. That's something else that the public has to consider. Yeah. Is that even though it's not reimbursable, we are still so much better off having a food management company, no matter who it is, than trying to run this ourselves. And it would be even cheaper if we contracted out employees, but that's not our way to do stuff. I mean, we want our own employees. We want to have that issue. And so that's why we have the 55,000. But if you look back before we had Airmark, I will never forget that it was $750,000 that we had to put from general fund into nutrition. So this is huge. And even though it seems like a lot of money, it's not.
Yeah, I agree. The reason I brought it up is just so the public would understand that. Thank you. Any other comments, concerns? If not, this is an action item, so I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve renewal of an agreement between Chartwell's food service management consultant and the Carson City School District from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023 at a cost to the district of an administrative fee not to exceed $55,030 and a management fee not to exceed 0.08809 per meal, with funding to come from the nutrition fund.
Second.
Second by Stacy. Any board discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to point out, even though, this is a financial consideration and discussion, of course, this is a really important program, and this opportunity the state is giving our students is super beneficial. The price of food, the amounts of poverty that are going on in our community, I think that there are students who come to school needing meals. And so, I just want to make sure that we look at the human side of that, because yes, there's a price tag on that, but if that 90 cents is feeding a kid who doesn't have food at home, I think that's worthwhile.
Totally agree. Any other board discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for any in-person public comment on the motion. Seeing none, we'll move on to any online public comment. Renee?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Fueling, and I know you can stay right where you're at. And we're going to move on to agenda item number 14, discussion and possible action on a resolution to approve a final amended budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022 to include revisions for a certified enrollment, audited fund balance, carry forward amounts, use of contingency funds, and recommended augmentation to specific funds, and this is for possible action. Mr. Fueling?
Thank you, President Varner. Before I get into the budget, I wanted to say I think it is a really classy move on the board's behalf to get the theme music for Mr. Stokes' last board meeting. This is just fantastic. So
We try our best.
okay, one of the it always seems strange to me each year, but we do this each year, and it's a standard practice of districts across the state. At the last meeting of the year, at the end of June, you approve the final budget for that year. So we're talking about the budget for the current year that ends in 2 days. And this is just a budget reflecting approved budget transfers and any other, if there's anything else that happened during the year that otherwise wasn't represented. And so this budget represents just the funds that had some of those budget transfers that you have approved throughout the year, reflects that. And then one item I just wanted to point out. So during the school year, we received an E-rate grant, which is a federal grant that helps a lot with IT-related items. And there was some significant upgrades that we were able to do to really some of our IT infrastructure, server infrastructure, switch infrastructure around the district. So the capital improvement plan that is in here and Fund 300 in here reflect a $700,000 increase in expenditures, but a $700,000 increase in revenue, which meets kind of the technical needs for a Department of Taxation, where you can't have, if you have a change like that, the revenue has to meet or be equal to the expenditure. So that's how that works. And otherwise, there's really no substantial changes to the budget. It's just this cleanup here at year end.
Thank you. Mike?
I'll move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the final amended budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022 by approving the resolution and transmittal letter, and further instruct the Director of Fiscal Services to file the necessary documents to comply with NRS Chapter 354.
I'll second.
Second by Don. Motion by Mike. Any board discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Any in-person discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Any online comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Thank you. We'll close public comment. I'll then call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. And I know you can stay right where you're at, Mr. Fueling. We'll move on to agenda item number 15, Discussion and action on recommended approval of the 2022-2023 tentative agreement with the following Carson City School District bargaining groups: the Carson City Administrators Association, Orangeby County Education Association, and Carson Educational Support Association, and this is for possible action.
Thank you again, President Varner. As you know, the Carson City School District had 4-year agreements with all 3 of our employee associations, our certified association administrators, and classified. That 4 years ends as of 2 days from now. And so we were meeting to negotiate a new contract agreement here over the spring. I guess first I really want to say, before I get into a little bit of the details, and I tried to summarize the changes that happened here, it was a really, I think, an exceptional experience, in that just, I feel like it's been a hard 4 years trying to wrap our heads around all of these changes that have happened on the funding side. And it's hard to communicate some of that, and I just really feel like the relationships that we have built over the years and the trust we have with our associations really made a difference, and I really can't thank them enough for just really being aware and being understanding of the district's situation. So for each of the agreements, we have a one-year term. In each of the agreements, there is a 0% increase to the salary schedule. So as you know, across our different groups, there are salary schedules that we follow in paying our employees. So there is no change to those schedules for this next year. Looking at the certified contract, or certified summary at the top, one thing I just wanted to point out, and it is a mistake on my part, the third bulleted item where it says revised longevity categories, under the 20-year category, I have $1,500. The amount is actually $1,700, and that is what is in the agreement. So that is simply a typo on my part. So within the certified contract, there were some changes to longevity, which recognizes employees staying with the district for a certain period of time, and clearly in our world, that retention is meaningful. So that was changed from 2 categories to 4, and some increases to those dollar amounts over time. There were a couple additional and revised supplemental positions, a new letter of investigation template that's formalized, so it's a standard document in the district. Some other general language cleanup and clarification, and the fiscal impact of the longevity and otherwise the agreement is about $542,000. The administrator's contract, again, the same thing in terms of term and salary increase. We changed the elementary principals so that they accrue some more days of annual leave during the school year, and made the accrual maximum equal across all admin. Again, some language cleanup and clarifications, and the total impact of that is about $69,000. For the classified contract, again, 1 year with a 0% base salary increase. Within this agreement, there was a $250 retention/hiring bonus that is to be paid out to all classified employees at the end of October of 22 and then March of 23. And then specifically really recognizing not only the work, but the difficulty in hiring and retaining some of the positions of custodians, bus drivers, and special education paraprofessionals during the same those same payment times as the original 250. There is actually an additional 250. So that is something that as a retention recognition, but that also would be paid out to a new hire, so we can market that as a hiring bonus. There's a change in responsibility pay, so with all hands on deck in many cases, recognizing those employees who have to take on some additional responsibilities and get extra pay for that. Currently, that was at 15 days. That will now be reduced to 5 days when that responsibility pay would begin. If an employee is injured by a student while performing the scope of their duties, admin leave can be authorized if needed with no sick leave deduction. As you know, especially within special education, that has become more common, and so just recognizing some employee protection there. Personal leave compensating balance payout beginning after 6 years. Currently, it's 10. The hope with that is it's a little bit closer if someone starts with the district to hang on, and if they did at least stay that long, they would get paid out instead of having to wait 10 years, and maybe that seems like it's too far down the road, and maybe they would bow out earlier. So hopefully that would actually help. Some other language cleanup and clarification, and a total fiscal impact of $485,000. So that's kind of a rundown of some of the highlights of all of the agreements. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Mike?
I guess I just would like to say for all of our employees out there, administrators, teachers, support staff, we know with inflation that it's hard to get by right now. And I think every school district is dealing with this, or the majority of the school districts in the state are dealing with this. And, for our teachers, our nurses, our principals who spend their money every week making sure they have snacks in their classrooms or offices for those kids who need something, or a coat because they have a kid who's been coming to school every day without a jacket and it's below zero outside. I think I could speak for all of my colleagues on the board and Mr. Fueling, Mr. Stokes, and say that we're not happy with not being able to provide raises for the employees. But we don't have the means. And so, if anything, this should kind of be a catalyst for us all to work together and really lobby the legislature and make sure that this district, our schools, are funded appropriately, because these kids deserve that. Our teachers deserve the support from our district to do these things, and they're not having to pay out of pocket for whatever it is that all educators and support staff are doing for our students. And so I just want to say that. I want to say that, I appreciate everybody working together and appreciating these are hard times, and for our generation, at least, unprecedented times. And so my hope is that next year we'll be having a little bit of a different conversation when we talk about our contracts.
Mike, well said, and I think we all agree with your comments, and we do appreciate the different associations be able to recognize the financial situation of the district and being able to work with the district. And I think the negotiating team tried to do the best they could under the circumstances. So we appreciate the negotiation teams. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the board? Questions? Seeing none, this is an action item. So I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the 2022-2023 tentative agreement with the following Carson City School District bargaining groups: Carson City Administrators Association, Ormsby County Education Association, and Carson Educational Support Association.
second by Stacy. Any board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any public comment on the motion?
Brian Wallace, Orange City County Education Association President. Mr. President, trustees, we just wanted to thank AJ for jumping in when he did for negotiations. He was already part of the district's bargaining team. But with the departure of the Associate Superintendent of HR, he had to assume all the responsibilities suddenly, which is awesome because a lot of it was HR related. And being on the fiscal side, it meant he didn't always know what was going on. But we also had Jolie Con Roberts to also rely on. So we would like to really thank district staff also. We can't do negotiations without all of them. We appreciate the board entertaining a one-year contract also, since this is a legislative session year per se. Our hope is exactly what you're talking about, Trustee Walker, with November elections and pressure from NSCA and other school districts and the Commission on School Funding, that someone somewhere finally listens to us, that this isn't working out for our squeeze and freeze situation that we may find ourselves in. And thank you to the trustees for entertaining the contracts. We understand that you're in a deficit spending situation, and even with the asks that we had, it continues to put you in a position to deficit spend. And we know that ending fund balance can go relatively quickly, but even with the small asks we had, with you approving these, hopefully tonight, in a few minutes, it shows your good faith also that any place where we continue to work with some contract language that can continue to reward our employees across all the bargaining groups is going to help out things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Any other public comment in person? Seeing none. Any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
We'll go ahead and close public comment, and I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item number 16, discussion and possible action to authorize an additional pay for performance staff payment for the 2021-2022 school year. Approval of this item will have a fiscal impact in the amount not to exceed $1 million. And this is for possible action. Mr. Fueling.
Thank you once again, President Varner. A little bit of history, if you recall, back in November, the Board of Trustees approved adding an additional $500 to the annual pay for performance payment in recognition of the work that employees were a lot of work that employees were doing through managing through the initial stages of COVID in this current school year. The year continued after that, and as you are aware, over time, job vacancies have been a struggle for the district, across the district in all areas. And so I think that initial payment was recognizing a lot of that hard work and picking up where there just weren't people to do certain work. Those job vacancies continued and quite honestly escalated as the year went on, driving more cost savings due to simply not being able to fill positions. So with that cost savings that has occurred this year, there's an opportunity to use it, and I think it's important to think of it as what I would call one-time money, and part of that is it's due to vacancies that we certainly would hope that we would be able to fill next year, but also in that the Department of Education has put out secondary final guidance, I guess you would call it, on the ending fund balance sweep provisions with the for school districts. As you're aware, I've told you before, I believe several times, probably more than you'd like to hear, the state created this education stabilization fund. And so based upon what I would consider conflicting language between NRS and Senate Bill 458 from the 2021 session, there's still some uncertainty exactly with how this is going to be handled, but based on the latest information that we have from the Department of Education, there is potential that the savings would be swept by the state into that education stabilization fund. So this is an opportunity, effectively what appears to be available would be about a $1,000 payment per employee that would meet and fall under this $1 million amount. So up to $1,000 could be available if you would so choose to make a modification to the pay for performance payment for the current school year.
Mike, go ahead.
So we're several days away from the end of the year and they haven't determined if they're going to sweep that or not. So when are they going to make that determination?
That is a great question, Trustee Walker. So I have a couple emails into the Department of Education expressing my disagreement with the last guidance that they sent out. I still have not received a response. I know that there is frustration from other districts in the state with how this has come out, and truly, the example I would use, when this language first came out, and even in the initial guidance that Department of Education sent out, we thought that the look was going to be at fund balances in the general fund, within the funds receiving pupil-centered funding plan revenues, which is the general fund, and then the weighted funds, the English Learner Fund, the GATE Fund, and the at-risk fund. And when we were sent out the secondary guidance a little more than a month ago, they also included the special education fund, the nutrition fund, and there's some question as to debt service, which I don't think they really included, but there's words that say debt service, and it just has districts kind of worried as to what this means. So I do not believe that special education and the nutrition fund, but for example, this year, so we are, like I said earlier, we are likely to run a surplus in the nutrition fund this year for the first time in I have audits going back to 96. It hasn't happened. And it's simply because the federal reimbursements, all these meals being free, the federal reimbursements coming in have been incredible. So that fund balance is going to increase due to federal revenues, yet any revenues in that fund are restricted. It's a special revenue fund. It can only be used for nutrition. So if I understand the mechanics of that, then you'd be forced, or they would end up sweeping or be forced to take some general fund revenue because they can't really take nutrition fund revenue, even though they're including nutrition fund revenue. I apologize. I know that that's kind of complicated, but it's a silly thing that should not be the way it is. And so I think there's more discussions that need to happen regarding that. Like I said, I think it's a matter of there's some conflicting language that needs to be. I think there was a kind of a Frankenstein moment of trying to make this work, given all the language that didn't seem to really fit, and so they've come up with this. But I don't really think it was the intent, and I don't think it ultimately should be the outcome of what this looks like.
Any other questions, comments? Don? I have one question. If this is approved, and since we're only a couple days away from the end of the year, when would the employees receive this money? Would it be on the next check?
So we have a truck outside with rolls of pennies. They're shiny pennies, let me tell you.
Hey, when I was in the military,
No.
we got paid in cash.
Yeah. No, so we we are prepared to process a payment tomorrow morning. And so what that would look like, and I think it's important, thank you for the question. So what we would expect then, whatever it would look like if you would approve anything tonight, I have my entire payroll department, which is 2 people, is planning on showing up really early tomorrow to try to make this happen. And so the expectation would be that we would get this process first thing in the morning so that it would be a direct deposit for those receiving direct deposit on Thursday, the 30th. And if employees, if they do not have direct deposit, if they choose to receive a paper check, we would cut that check in the morning once that process is done, and it would be mailed so that hopefully it would arrive on the 30th, maybe on Friday the 1st. by mail.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
What amount are you recommending? Is it the 1,000 or is there some other amount?
I would recommend the 1,000, and I mean, I think of it in terms of the year that was and the work that was done in recognizing. I know you all are very aware. You hear these things and you know what the year was like, and so given that work and given the circumstances of the agreements and some of these other issues that I have, I think that would be well suited to that number.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees authorize an additional pay for performance staff payment in the amount of $1,000 for the 2021-2022 school year with a fiscal impact not to exceed $1 million.
Second by Laura. Any board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any in-person public comment on the motion? Mr. Wallace?
Brian Wallace, Associate President for the record. Mr. President, trustees, this is a tough one. And it's because of state law that's put all of us in this position. I look back to the recession and what we survived there and the ending fund balance that we unfortunately built along the way due to vacancies and other realized savings. All those realized savings equaled up to an ending fund balance that then allowed us to maintain our PERS contributions. That allowed us to maintain what most will still consider a Cadillac insurance plan, and then ultimately led to an 8% pay raise over the span of 4 years. The state now has put you in a position that you're not going to be able to give pay raises. The long-term effects of that are horrible. Just the impact on PERS alone for members, just the impact on payroll growth for PERS, especially in those current market conditions, let alone being able to recruit for any positions within the district. So it's going to be imperative as we move forward as a community, and this is reaching out to all our parents, community groups, that this aspect of the funding mechanism needs to change. It's going to become a system of destabilization, not stabilization. And then the fear, as I was just talking with Dr. Ward, is the state would sweep the accounts, only then to turn around and have you apply for your own money through a grant, most likely, that you couldn't give to employees. So the positive is for all of you here as trustees tonight, is to turn around and take the realized savings through AJ's guidance and give it back to the employees. We have just a couple of members at Eagle Valley that had substituted on their preps over 60-plus days at that point. And 2 of them turned it into a competition at that point to see who was going to win it. But if you consider they're giving up their prep for almost a third of the year at that point, that's a sizable commitment. And they're not the only ones. There's across all the groups within this school district, each of you have realized it all year, the time and the effort and everything put in. So my hope is no one will look this money at a certain way as previous. But we also know, as you mentioned, Trustee Walker and others, that with the rate of inflation pushing around 8.5%, 9%, yes, the extra $1,000 is definitely welcomed, especially for those of us who commute. I know where I'm putting that money for this year. But there's those long-term concerns that we need to start to examine and put pressure on the legislature about at the same time. To conclude, though, thank you very much for it on behalf of every single member within your employ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other in-person public comment? Seeing none, any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. AJ, before you leave, please, I'd just like to thank you for all the work you've done in your current position. And we look forward to the work you're going to do in your new position, and which is a couple days away. So welcome as a new superintendent. We're looking for great things from you, and any support I think the board can give you, we're here for you, and we'll definitely support you the best we can.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 17, approval of the consent agenda for possible action. We'll just go ahead and ask for a motion, I guess.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion, comments on the motion?
So looking through that, we've hired AJ's replacement.
AJ,
We're all set for there.
I think your new replacement, if I recall, is coming in on July 18th.
Okay.
Any other board discussion, questions? Any in-person public comment? Seeing none. Any online?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Move on to agenda item number 18, informational items. This is for discussion only. I believe the board is well aware of what the informational items are, and you've probably read that already. So is there any questions? I don't have any. Then we'll move on to item number 19, request for future agenda topics. Mike, you look like you may have something.
I'd like a follow-up about, AJ, what's determined by the Department of Education about sweeping those funds or not. I mean, I'd rather know than wait until next year when I'm reminded about it.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, it's about 9:30. Let me check the phone here. 9:32, and we are adjourned. Thank you guys for staying, and appreciate your attendance.